So Brendan, I think it's really interesting that we're launching this programme in the middle, I guess, of a pandemic, when we know that teachers are really busy. They're doing a fabulous job in supporting the learning and teaching of our young people. Um, and I think it's really interesting to note that there has been a real interest in the programme, that numbers have signed up for the pilot, and that continues over these coming months. And when I was reflecting on that this morning, I was thinking about my experience of professional learning is that teachers absolutely need to see the value of the learning for the work that they're doing right now. So this year more than ever, teachers are looking for professional learning that supports the young people that they are working with now, that supports their own learning and understanding of that, and it supports what they feel their young people need right now. So for me, that means that the PACT programme is more pertinent than perhaps even it was previously.
Yeah, I think particularly with the focus on health and well-being, you know, during the kind of recovery period as well, I think it's, as you see, more important, and also the fact that due to a number of factors related to the pandemic, you know, for some families, you know, they'll find themselves living in poverty maybe where they haven't before, or conditions have maybe deteriorated further in terms of loss of earnings or things like that. So it's even more pertinent, I would say, definitely at this time. And I think it's about obviously trying to build that into teachers' professional learning and not it being seen as an add-on. So really being seen as something that's going to enhance practice, and it's not going to be something that's going to be onerous or add on to workload as well.
Absolutely. For many, many years, I've advocated that the best professional learning is not professional learning that we do to teachers, but professional learning with teachers, for teachers, and by teachers. So one of the strengths of this programme for me is that it was co-developed with the profession. So the project team who've led the work have worked really closely with teachers. They've sounded out their ideas, but they've also worked really closely with researchers and experts in this field, to some of those areas that you were flagging there around what young people are facing right now, around wellbeing challenges, around poverty challenges that might not have existed previously. The team haven't developed this programme in isolation. They've developed it in partnership, and I think that's a really strong message that hopefully will mean teachers will see the relevance of this right now, as we were saying, and will be keen to sign up.
Yeah, I think they will. I think once they're given the kind of background and the kind of approach and the way the programme has been developed is shared with them as well, they'll really see the value of it, and it will be something that's very credible.
And I think with it being a programme being led by the EIS, you know, that access to a large percentage of the teaching workforce, and teachers who've engaged in the pilot, one of the biggest sellers of professional learning, if you need a sales pitch, is about teachers who've already engaged in that learning and how they've seen the value of it. So in terms of the next phase of the programme and the rollout and the looking at the modules, that message from teachers who've already engaged, I think, will be really, really important.
Yes, but definitely in terms of kind of taking on their feedback as well, and shaping the later kind of phases of the project as well, in terms of content. And as you say, you know, they've all obviously already worked closely with staff in schools, and they're listening to what, you know, staff are looking for as well, which has informed the content so far.
And I think one of the challenges for teachers engaged in the programme too, that we need to recognise, is the multiple priorities that they'll be facing this year. And again, you know, advice that I would be giving to any teacher right now is to think about what are your priorities for your learning this year. You do not need to be covering a massive amount of different aspects of professional learning. Focus on, as I was saying to you earlier, what makes a difference right now. And actually this priority right now feels to me really, really timely.
Yeah, and I think also it's about ensuring that, you know, local education authorities and schools have a clear awareness of the kind of rationale behind the project as well. So ensuring that they've got a good understanding of what the project's about and how it can improve, you know, what's on offer already within their authority. And obviously I think as that kind of filters down, it helps to maybe free up a bit of space for teachers as well. So if schools see it as a priority, it's something that's then built into their plans in terms of their improvement plans, and it's then that space is created for teachers to be able to work on this and to engage.
Yeah, because I think the space part this year, again, I'm repeating myself, about more important than ever before. But there's a real irony, I think, this year around engagement and professional learning. So what we're finding in Education Scotland, and I'm guessing you might be finding this in your local authority, is that some of the barriers that existed previously around travel, around location in Scotland, those have all but disappeared because of these remote ways of learning. So we've had teachers engaging from across the whole of Scotland in many professional learning programmes and who are saying, I wouldn't have been able to do this previously. So that's a wake-up call for us in terms of some of our professional learning development, even though we've always tried really hard to have that maximum reach, that the increased engagement. And I think one of the benefits for the PACT programme this year will be an unintended benefit, because a lot of the pilot work was based specifically in locations across Scotland, but teachers will be able to come together to network, to share, to think as part of these modules where without the pandemic, that sounds really mad, but without the pandemic, they would have been learning in really different ways.
Yeah, and I think it then enables teachers from kind of similar contexts to link up, for maybe, again, as you say, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do before, so where they're maybe in differing education authorities or parts of the country, because this is going to be delivered remotely as well, they've got that ability to link with other people that maybe are facing the same challenges or working in a school in a very similar context as to their own.
Yeah, because we talked at one of the board meetings about very different parts of Scotland sharing the same context, so rurality, and rural poverty linked to that. So potentially there will be connections that teachers engaging with the programme can make that they might not have been able to make previously. And again, I know the work that Kate and Sandra have been leading on, one of the things that has been at the forefront of all the conversations has been sustainability. How do we sustain this programme beyond the lifespan of a pilot? So actually building those connections across local authorities, across Scotland, with similar interests and sharing that learning, I think potentially will aid the sustainability even more than the team might have been thinking at the beginning.
Yeah, I think as well, in terms of the introduction, of the Scottish Attainment Challenge and of PEF, all of that fits together really well. Obviously, that goes without saying. So I think this is something that's going to really go hand in hand with a lot of the work that schools are already perhaps doing or starting to engage with.
And I guess that joining up is really important. So there's a responsibility or an aspiration that teachers who engage in the programme will then make those connections across their school, across local authorities, and again nationally, to share how this learning impacts on that wider national aspiration around equity, which is at the heart of all of our work.
Yeah, and I think as well, it might open doors in terms of maybe relationships and connections with other agencies as well. So it might prompt a bit of thought, I think, for staff and for schools into kind of community groups or things like food share associations or housing or social services, and it might help to kind of build those links in terms of opening doors to support for families as well. So I think the more the schools develop their kind of practice and their approach in this area, then it will lead into other things, and it will become something that becomes hopefully very embedded and just kind of common practice.
And that links then to ownership of professional learning, and that's something as well that I'm really passionate about, and I talked about it a wee bit earlier about the fact that professional learning shouldn't be something that feels separate and is done to you. But there's real potential from what you were sharing there, Brendan, around, if teachers engage in this learning and they see the value and there's a real impact on practice, impact on the work with young people, the kind of spiralling off of that. So not only owning the learning, but owning where that learning takes you as an individual, where it takes your class, where it takes your school, and that kind of growing effect. I was in one of the creative bravery sessions last week, and someone was talking about Trojan mice, and I didn't know what a Trojan mouse was. So you know what a Trojan horse is?
Yeah.
But a Trojan mouse, I learned, is the idea that lots of us working collectively in lots of different ways can actually have the same effect that sometimes a Trojan horse would have. And I thought that was a great analogy. And actually, just as we were talking there, I was seeing the potential of the next stage of this programme could be lots of Trojan mice in terms of the impact of the learning, which has real potential. It could be really exciting.
I think it's also about empowering schools to, I think a lot of what is covered in the media at times can be quite kind of derogatory and quite kind of negative, and I think it's about empowering schools and staff to ensure that they realise that they can actually make a difference. And as you say, it's back to that kind of idea of Trojan mice then, everyone working this collective, endeavour, and also involving kind of children in that as well, and young people to, effect change that's in their own backyard.
Yeah, and Brendan, if we've ever we've ever looked for evidence of the impact that teachers and schools have in the lives of young people this year, I've just been blown away. I was speaking at our Into Headship launch the other day, and I was saying that every year I'm inspired by Scotland's teachers and Scotland's head teachers, but more so this year than ever before. And that this continued commitment, recognising what teachers and school leaders are doing right now, and a continued commitment to their own learning to continue to make a difference to the lives of children and young people is a testament to the work that the Scottish Education System does, I think.
Yeah. And I think certainly the work of the PACT programme will fit in perfectly with that.
Absolutely.